Namaskar. Hello and welcome to 𝗣𝗚𝗃 channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today I'm in India in Gurugram, as a matter of fact, and I have with me a new guest, 𝗤𝗏 Singh Lohit. 𝗤𝗏 ji, Namaskar and welcome to 𝗣𝗚𝗃 channel.
Thank you.
So 𝗤𝗏 Singh Lohit is the grandson of Bharat Ratna awardee Chaudhry Charan Singh, the Prime Minister of India for some time, and today we're going to talk to him about his grandfather. By the way, 𝗤𝗏 Singh Lohit has written a couple of books about Sri Charan Singh, and we're going to talk about this also. Sir, first of all, my honor and pleasure to have you here. Thanks for taking the time out to meet with me today. You could have done a lot of things on a weekend, but you chose to talk to me. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, it's good to bask in the reflected glory of a great man.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, talk to us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll go into Charan Singh ji, his extended family, and so on. So, first off, who is 𝗤𝗏 Singh Lohit?
Well, I went to school in Delhi and did an MBA in the US in Rhode Island. And I was lucky to get into the IT industry in 1987. And even luckier to work with a wonderful team where we co-founded a software company under a leader called Arjun Malhotra, who was one of the founders of HCL. That's the biggest reason why people know him. But a wonderful man with a wonderful team and a wonderful everything in the company. We had a great time there for many years till 2011 when it was acquired, and I chose to leave. So what did I do? 2012 was go back to my ancestral calling, in a way, of farming. So that's the primary thing. The other thing I did was, I was lucky to meet a professor by the name of Paul Brass. So Paul met Chaudhry Charan Singh first in 1961 when he was doing his PhD. And guess where he stayed? He lived in Lucknow.
Wow.
He was under the guidance of an even greater Indologist called Professor Myron Weiner, who's written some of the most seminal books that an American scholar has written about India post-independence. There was great interest in India from the US in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, for various reasons, including communism and all of it. But Myron Weiner was a big name, much bigger than Paul Brass. People forget it. But Paul, from 1961 till his death, he passed away in 22. But he was a fantastic and a very detailed scholar in India. He studied UP politics in great detail. I've got his archives. He's interviewed hundreds of politicians. He's written 18 books on India. And of those books, there are two areas. One, he focuses on how communal riots happen. And the other one is on the politics of Uttar Pradesh, especially on the Congress party. He met Charan Singh, fell in love with him over a period of 5 years, as people tended to do with Charan Singh, who knew him well. Paul wrote books which put Charan Singh in a good light. He had no axe to grind. He was an American scholar.
Correct.
And he was from University of Chicago, and he did his, his work under Weiner, who was from Harvard. So the best, absolutely the best credentials. I met Paul in 2012 when he published his first book, one called An Indian Political Life, the Congress Politics from 1937 to 1987. I was stunned because he wrote this essentially as a 3-volume biography of Charan Singh, released from 2012 to 2015. Now Paul is talking about a man saying that that book is amazing. Anyone who knows about Indian, who's a political scientist in India knows of Paul Brass's book or has read them. He says that one of the greatest politicians India has produced, and he's given reasons. It's very thick books of about 1400 pages, all the 3 books, and he talks in great detail about Charan Singh and his life. It struck me that here I am with all the time and resources at my command, the freedom of time, and here is a man who's an American who's written a book about my grandfather, and I read the book, I was in tears. I said, I don't know. Why is he doing it? Why am I not? So that started off a friendship with me and Paul. Wonderful man, great scholar, and we became close. I reached out to him. He was here for the release of the book, and he released the book 3 times. It was by Sage Publications. 3 volumes over a period of a couple of years. I came close to him and I started studying. I started studying Charan Singh's life through his work, through the work of scholars, see, not politicians,
Yes.
not hagiographists, scholars and economists, including obviously Mr. Subramanian Swamy, who was one of the few who was close to him in his later years. Now, I studied Christoph Jaffrelot, I studied Sunil Khilnani, studied Terence Byers and Paul Brass, to name 4 well-known scholars, but I read a lot. Second thing is that besides his reading and coming close to Paul, he used to come here, we spent a lot of time together, going out for meals. He is yet doing research in the early 2012-13 period. I went to his home, I saw all his archives. The best collection of books on India I have seen in any scholar's home. He had 2 floors of books on India.
Wow.
2 floors at the University of Washington. Beautiful house, 30-40 acres outside Seattle, a place called the Boondocks of all places.
Right.
So Paul was very deeply influenced me. He's written since 1961 many books which had Charan Singh in it, not as a primary central figure, but as a key figure. All the interviews of people. So I've got all the interviews he's done with all the politicians. He gave me access to all his files. Great heart. Why? He said, I met Charan Singh in 81. I promised him I'll write his biography. And I've always felt guilty that when he passed away, I had not written his biography. So in 2012, I am keeping my commitment to the memory of the greatest Indian politician that I knew. 2012.
Wow.
So it is very emotional for me.
Yes.
Now, besides Paul, the second thing happened was in 1992, the family donated the entire works of Chaudhry Sahib, which had already been kind of dissipated. In India, we don't respect written history. You
Yes.
live by the word, so you
Right,
don't
right,
live by documentation. Charan Singh was completely the opposite. He had learnt his history making and history writing from British scholars in India, though. And I will talk about that if you have the time.
Sure.
But he was a meticulous record keeper. All the family remembers him up at 4:30. By the time the Babus came at 8, he had all the letters to be written, made all his notes. He was just a meticulous record keeper. All his files, he had files from 1934.
Wow.
So all those papers, many of his books were taken by people. In a politician's house in India at that time,
Dharamshala.
anybody could walk in and walk out and, Shree take anything they wanted.
Keep going.
Okay?
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff went, all his books went, but his papers had been kept safely away, most of them. So all the papers were given by the family to the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, which is now the Prime Minister's Museum.
Yes.
250,000 pages. I got involved with those. I went through the entire archive. And I selected from that as to stuff which I need to do further research and further writing. I haven't even touched 5% of what I have selected.
Wow.
So I've selected 10% of the papers, but of that 10%, I haven't even touched 5%. There's so much scholarship to be done, which I hope now we'll be able to do.
Yeah.
So these 2 things got me very close to understanding Charan Singh. I'm not an expert, I'm not a political scientist, but I'm certainly more than just a grandson who loves his grandfather.
Yes.
It is my knowledge, because I have analytical mind, right? And I'd like to believe that I am basing my views on facts and figures, although very clearly sympathetic to the man. I'm not trying to find flaws, and I'm not trying to find good things. I have known and lived with him. I know his character, his personality, and the fact that he was an absolutely amazing grandfather. So when you're so close to somebody and you see them so closely, you know the reality, you just got to back it up with facts.
Correct.
Right? So from 1975, when he was a guest of Mrs. Gandhi in Tihar jail,
Yes.
from that time he moved to Delhi pretty much. And if Mrs. Gandhi hadn't done the emergency, the rest history wouldn't have followed.
Yes.
But it did. So from 75 to 87, my parents and I mostly used to see him every day. So I was very close physically, and so are many other cousins and uncles and aunts and even others. Meet every day in the evening because he wanted to release from all the tension of the day,
Yeah.
the politics, and the family was his release.
Wonderful. So now let's dive back a little bit.
Okay.
Let us go back to Charan Singh.
Yeah.
Where was he born and what was his early days, and then his family, and how you are the grandson. You can tell us a little bit about
About the family.
tree. And so let's take it back to when Charan Singh was born and walk us through how the education system in India was. Viewers, this is not politics, although we're going to talk about one of the best prime ministers who didn't have much time on his hands to show what he could have done. At the same time, the fact that he has received a Bharat Ratna speaks volume. In my opinion, it is well deserved. It has nothing to do with politics. The BJP government does a lot of work before they start giving these awards. Just my personal opinion. So, 𝗤𝗏𝗄𝘅, people have come to listen to you. I can go on and on.
No, you must, because I think it makes a conversation rather than a monologue. Absolutely, please.
So I've heard about Charan Singh Saab in a different way, and
Of course.
I'll come to that in just
Yes.
a minute. But let's get back to where was he born, his upbringing, and so on.
Okay. So, I have 4 things which I think are foundational to understanding the man. This is what I've concluded, and it's ongoing. First is that he was born in 1902 in a district which is today district Hapur, but that time was Bulandshahr. All these districts have been redrawn.
Right.
So it's about 100 kilometers from here, little village called Noorpur. And he said कि मैं एक गरीब किसान की मढ़ैया में पैदा हुआ था, जहाँ घर के आंगन में एक पानी पीने का कुआं था. Kachi Madhya. Madhya means hut, and Kachi Madhya means mud hut. So this is his own words, because all that I tell you
Right.
is backed by facts, by words from the archives. So by the way, the whole thing, the outcome of the research was setting up an archives is www.charanSingh.org.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
all of this is on the archive, extracts from the Prime Minister's museum and library. So 1902, so from that immediately comes to mind with this quotation that he was born in a mud hut. It gives you some idea of what he was. So I won't keep it a mystery. First, he was born into poverty. See, when you think of Chaudhry Sahib and you think of someone called Chaudhry, you think he must have a lot of land.
Yes.
Couple of 100 acres.
Yeah.
So everybody who knows me but doesn't really know me, because I don't go about saying I'm Chaudhry Sahib's grandson. Those who know me and come to know, I say, oh, you must have a lot of land. So I have to disabuse them that both from my father's and mother's side, there was no land to be inherited. The only thing which we inherited was ethics and a love for education. So for him, he was born into poverty. His parents, I must show you this.
Yes, please go ahead.
I hope yeah. So this, you want to show it to?
Yeah. We can.
Yeah. This is my great grandfather and great grandmother, Mir Singh and Netru Kaur. Kaur was, by the way, common to peasants of the Jat community in UP, Haryana, and the Sikhs.
I see.
So it was just Kumari.
Kumari, right? Yeah, right. That's what I thought. Yeah.
So there you have it. Illiterate father, illiterate peasants. His only claim to fame was a tremendous knowledge of farming. In 1902, when Chaudhry Sahib was born, my great grandfather Chaudhry Mir Singh was a tenant farmer on 5 acres of land.
I see.
So you have to put this into perspective. That here is this man whose father is an illiterate tenant farmer. He doesn't own land. He works with his own hands. His wife helps him on the land.
Right.
Okay, so he's about 20 something and his son is born in 1902. So in the late 1880s he was born. He moved from another village which is towards Haryana, and they ultimately had moved from Haryana. You know, this great movement of peasant communities from to what is today Pakistan, Punjab, Sindh, Rajasthan, moving around through Haryana and then moving across the Yamuna into the Indo-Gangetic plain was a historical movement to find, as population grew, they all moved in this direction. So his family from my Chaudhry Sahab side moved from this direction, and they were all pioneers. They were all fantastic. So every British author, for whatever you can look at them, they were good judge of how to figure out people because they knew how to exploit them better.
Correct.
But the British said that the best farmers in northwest India are the Jats of West UP, first Punjab, and then UP and Rajasthan. Because they were known to be, all they did was really farm very well. So he was a great farmer, but he was in a mud hut, he was not educated, he did not own land, and he worked with his own hands. So self-cultivating farmer. So you're getting to understand that when I used to go to my village from my father's side, the sounds, the smells, the language, the food, the people, the whole approach to life, there were no idols. There was no temples. It was all nature that one worshipped and was close to nature. So Chaudhry Sahab, I can well imagine, when he is growing up, what is he hearing? What is he feeling? He is listening to the voice of an illiterate peasant family, and all around him are similar. All are small farmers, all are tenants to the landlord, right? All speak a certain language. There is a certain pain and the suffering and the poverty and the illiteracy and the caste system, and so all of that is starting to build around him. So for the first 25 years of his life, when he was closely at home and going back and forth, these were the effects. So this is the first thing about him, born to poverty. The second thing about him is that he broke out of that poverty and he became educated. Okay, unlike all those in the freedom movement of his age and senior to him, great men, all of them, from Gandhi to Nehru to Patel to any of them who participated in the freedom struggle, all great men and women. But Chaudhry Sahab didn't have the facility to be able to travel outside the country. It was impossible thought. So his family moved from this Nurpur to another village near Meerut. He went to school in a school in Meerut town. He was sent. His father said, "I can't afford your education." He's saying, "Now you farm because you're the eldest, and we'll figure out the other kids later. But you farm." That's what he thought.
Right.
Now my great-grandfather's brothers were just retired from the British Army, come back from the Boer War, which was in the first
South
decade,
Africa, yeah.
South Africa. So they had come back and they had some money. So one of them said, "नहीं, ये मेरा भतीजा है, बहुत तेज दिमाग है, इसको मैं गांव में नहीं रहने दूंगा, इसको मैं पढ़ाऊंगा."
अच्छा. Wow.
So he senses these small things which happen.
Yes.
So when I look at helping children from underprivileged backgrounds, helping them go to school, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not doing it for myself, but maybe one out of those 100 is going to change the world. So this young boy went to this school in Meerut. It was called Moral Training School of all things. But there's a great amount of morality in rural India. Great amount of focus. People think they're illiterate.
Right.
But illiterate in the modern sense, they were very knowledgeable in an Indian sense.
Yes.
Great amount of culture, great amount of, even if they didn't read the Vedas, didn't read the Puranas, didn't read the Mahabharata, but the values imbibed were very strong from all of that. So he goes to school, he does well, continues in Meerut, then he goes to Agra College. In Agra College, he completes the 12th at that time, inter and inter final. I think there was a qualification which was not inter, which was before that, but he finished 12 years of school. Then he finds an interest does his bachelor's, then he finds an interest in history. Agra College at that time was not a university. It was under Allahabad.
I see.
There was a professor called Professor Rushbrook Williams, who was the head of the history department, himself a 28-year-old
I see.
Englishman.
Of course, that's the thing.
And he set up the history department at Allahabad University in the early 1920s. Influential in getting many Indians to study history. And all the biggest names of Allahabad University in history were taught by Rushbrook Williams. He attracted them.
I see.
They in turn attracted others. So they were really laying the basis of their own destruction in India by educating people.
Right.
So you can paid as a backhanded compliment to the British.
Correct.
Now Rushbrook Williams and his professors, who were all Indians, they used to go to Agra College, take the classes, and they used to hold examinations for everyone there. So Chaudhry Sahab did his history in English, important, and I will tell you why I think it's important. In European, French, European, British and Indian history, a master's in history.
I see. Wow.
That is the foundation of all his books. So I'll cut the long story short in some ways. Outcome of this erudition is 6 books he wrote, which are what I call the selected works of Charan Singh from 1946 to 1987. All of them have that same historical view of the world, of there is a thesis and then he looks at both sides of the yes and the no, and then he comes up with his own solution. He learned that rhetorical way of writing from the Englishman, but he did it in Agra. Okay, so his erudition and his knowledge started there, and his interest in reading started there. So in this, I must show this to you too. So these are this is what I call the summary of his selected works. It took a lot of effort first finding the selected works. So you've got the books.
Right.
1947, Abolition of Zamindari. 1959, Joint Farming X-Ray. 1964, India's Poverty and its Solution. India's Economic Policy, 1978. Economic Nightmare of India, 1981, where you can see at 80, he's 79 years old and he's thinking there's a nightmare happening here.
Right.
And Land Reforms in UP in the Kulaks in 86. He wrote these books. Besides this, there are thousands and thousands of pages of booklets, speeches, articles, political manifestos. He wrote all of those. So in this, there are these, it's quite unbelievable that a man actually did this. There are 20 pages here of bibliography.
Yeah.
Of the
in
books
those
that he
days,
wrote.
there was no internet.
There's a book. He was in jail in 1941, Bareilly jail, and 1942, Gandhiji's movement.
Quit India
movement. So he was in jail, and there's a jail diary of his, which I was lucky enough to get from my mother. I've given it now to the Prime Minister's Museum. In that diary, he has read 1942. There's a book called Red Star Over China by Edgar Snow. Edgar Snow was an American journalist who was sympathetic to the Chinese communists, which almost got him killed in the US. He wrote this book on the Long March of Mao.
I see.
Chaudhry Sahab read the book in 42. It was published in 37. How did it reach the jail? How did he have it? And how did he understand it? Okay? So, what I'm saying is that his reading was unbelievable. And I will talk about his Hindi reading, but his English reading. These are, once you go through this bibliography. So this is what I was able to do. That go through each book that is referred to and put it in a modern format,
Right.
which is the accepted international format for
Correct.
bibliography
Correct.
in a book.
Correct.
So for each of his books, he has these 20 pages of bibliography. So what I'm saying is, the second part was from poverty to erudition. How do you do it? Without the support of society. There was nobody at home to teach him English.
Right.
He couldn't come home like your kids and my kids. भाई बच्चे को घर पे ट्यूशन दो, इंग्लिश पढ़ाओ, मैथ पढ़ाओ, साइंस पढ़ाओ, कुछ नहीं था. बाप क्या थे? किसान थे, अनपढ़ किसान थे. No one at home to support you. Nobody in school really cares much about you. Literally self-made man. I can't say I'm a self-made man.
Right.
If I set up a software company, it's because what my parents and grandparents gave me, which is education.
Right.
I'm not self-made. I'll be fooling myself if I say that. He was. So the second thing is erudition. Two more things, foundational, and then we can delve into other things. The third was Swami Dayanand. Fundamental to his being. Fundamental to his being. In an interview in 1972 to Shyam Manchanda of Nehru Library in Lucknow, when he was leader of the opposition, he said that in the social and religious field, I was influenced by Swami Dayanand. Now, so Chaudhry Sahib spoke always very gently in these interviews. On the political stage, he was different. He spoke very gently, very softly, with great amount of Indic civilizational manners. And he said that I was deeply influenced by Swami Dayanand. And he said it, I think he didn't put it enough emphasis. He thought that his guru and idol was Swami Dayanand. Now, in his home Sri, in Lucknow and in Delhi, he had 4 photographs. Guess who? Okay, let's do a guessing game.
I guess one
First.
would be Swami Dayanand.
Yes, you got that one right.
Swami Vivekananda.
Swami Vivekananda.
Okay. I'm
Third
batting
is third is Gandhi.
Oh, I see.
Fourth is Tagore.
Tagore, I see. That was a surprise. I wouldn't have known what to say. Yeah.
He was very influenced by Tagore. He saw in him the renaissance of Indian civilization. It's very amazing. Here's this man who's, he was, and Kabir was his 5th,
I see.
which was he knew Kabir in and out.
How much do you watch P Guru's videos?
I don't.
I do Hindi now.
Oh, you do?
And I do a lot of Hindi.
Okay.
मोटी छोटी बात कर लेते हैं हम भी.
हाँ.
But I'm a host, so
क्या बात?
questions पूछना तो आसान है मेरे में.
हाँ.
So I'm frequent quoter of Kabir.
You are. No?
Oh yes.
I'm saying anyone who reads Kabir,
Yes.
I know his heart is in the right place. I have read a lot of Kabir, followed a lot of the music of Kabir from contemporary sources, read the original books, including the one by Tagore.
I see.
The one from 1911, I think the first time where Tagore was translated to English. I mean, sorry, Kabir was translated to English by Tagore.
Oh wow.
He translated it himself.
I see.
तो वो मेरी सबसे पहली किताब थी 40 साल पहले.
Nice.
तो ये 5 लोग का था. Now स्वामी दयानंद का क्या influence था?
Arya Samaj, right?
Today Arya Samaj is part of Sanatan Dharma.
Right.
But Arya Samaj, you can call it, there were many aspects to Arya Samaj. One of the first that you can look at it was demanding a revolution within the Hindu Samaj.
Yes.
So what was Dayanand all about?
It's like Ghar Wapsi in those days, isn't it?
Well, Ghar Wapsi was one external manifestation of Arya Samaj. And I think that's politically exciting for people, so they talk about Ghar Wapsi. And I'm sure it was a part of it, but I'd like to keep away from that.
No problem.
What I will, and you asked Chaudhry Sahib that, he said, Manchanda asked him, कि Chaudhry Sahib, उस ज़माने में स्वामी श्रद्धानंद की जब मौत हुई, someone, assassinated him. He said, आपका क्या राय? He said, भैया हम उन सब चीज़ों में हम ताल्लुक नहीं रखते थे. He knew what are the important things from Arya Samaj. So first, Hindu religion needs a complete revolution in its attitude to caste. Secondly, back to the Vedas.
There were no castes then.
Back to the Vedas.
Right.
Whether there were castes or not, which one can go by the Gandhian view or by others' view. Caste, whether it was caste, it was strong, not strong, everyone has their views. But when you say back to the Vedas, you are saying back to a certain civilizational view, but also saying back to truth and knowledge. So he's not even talking about, he's talking about caste separately. He says he should do away with caste. But he's saying the second thing is back to truth and knowledge. He says the Vedas have all the truth and knowledge put together by our ancestors. We should go back to that. That is what the real thing is. Why are you involved with, third thing about Dayanand, which the Sanatan Dharma does not like. And that's why it's been able to absorb Arya Samaj by now, because the vibrancy of Arya Samaj finished 50 years after the death of, Swami Dayanand. You needed somebody that, like a rock, like a Vivekananda there.
Correct.
It was absorbed, but here what I see, idol worship. Chaudhry Sahib never went to a temple. He visited them when he was asked to. He was not disrespectful, by no means. But he did not believe that God resides in a temple, which many of us do. But we go to a temple because, it's okay to go to a temple. Some people's lives are centered around the idol, around the bhakti, which is fine for them. He believed that idols and idol worship and rituals and superstitions were taking you away from the truth which is in the Vedas. He was speaking in that sense. So I want to dispel the notion that he was anti-Sanatan Dharma. He was not. He wanted to change it. He wanted to revolutionize it. The other thing in this, the Arya Samaj wanted to do was change the status of women, both in terms of education and within the family. So equality with respect within the family, where the woman has her role and the man has his role, but they are both equal, but they both do different things.
Right.
So everybody doesn't need to do the same thing. So if the man is a soldier fighting with weapons at the front, the woman doesn't have to do the same thing.
Right.
She should do something which is appropriate. Now what is appropriate will be different for different people,
Right.
and I'm wary to say something which could put me into deep trouble with my son especially. But gender equality through education. So Arya Samaj, you heard about the DAV, the
Yes.
Dayanand Ayurvedic College. Huge movement in the Punjab, which spread partly to West UP. Educate your girls.
Right.
And this is, I'm talking about the late 1800s, early 1900s. Chaudhary Saab's wife, my grandmother, Gayatri Devi, went to a Dayanand Ayurvedic college in Jalandhar in hostel. There was the plague at that time. When was the plague?
1920s.
I think a little before that perhaps.
I see.
Maybe there, 1918, 1920. And her whole family was wiped out. Only her sister and her grandfather. So grandfather sent her to a hostel, to a girls' college. Girls' college in 1920 in a peasant farming community.
Right.
You know, it was quite revolutionary. So the whole focus on it. So the influence of Dayanand in his social and religious thinking was enormous and foundational. The other thing which came out of this was that he modeled himself on Dayanand, which is outspoken, fearless, and saying what is in the heart, putting it on the tongue. That a lot of people say was also his undoing, because he was so clear in his thoughts. At times he said things which perhaps some people with a more diplomatic way of putting it wouldn't have said. He got into trouble always with that. So this is the third element. The fourth element we come to, the most contemporary one, in 1918 onwards, was the influence of Gandhi. So when Chaudhary Saab was asked that, who influenced you more? So he said, look, Swami Dayanand and Gandhiji said the same thing to me. They talk about revolutionizing Hindu society. They talked about doing away with caste. They talked about the status of women. They talked about ethics and morality in life. They said the same thing, and I heard it from Swami Dayanand first. But Gandhiji was the first one in our nation's history who got all these together in a mass movement. You know, so he said that, was it Swami Dayanand's words I was following, or was it Gandhiji's in the Congress? I don't know. So 1918, he was in Agra College, and there was a 𝗤𝗏𝗍𝗍 sweeper, and he, as part of Gandhiji's call to oppose caste, and he was also going to give a college and join Gandhiji's movement, when his uncle called him home and said, no, this is not done, you got to keep studying. Otherwise he would be one of the freedom fighters with, I don't know what would have happened there.
Right.
He wouldn't have done his masters in history, and these books wouldn't be here and all that. He accepted food from the hands of a 𝗤𝗏𝗍𝗍 sweeper, which in that time was a big thing, because in the hostel, everyone had their caste kitchens.
Right.
Nobody
Really?
ate. Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody had their caste kitchens. Nobody ate from the other caste, even if it was, forget Muslim, forget scheduled caste, Dalits. Everyone had their own caste kitchens. He accepted food from
British must have loved it.
Of course, they helped it along.
Yeah.
They helped it along. So he accepted that. He was boycotted by all the students of the hostel.
Of course.
He stood his ground.
Yeah.
He said, I will do it because I have a call which tells me to do this. So this movement happened, deeply influenced by Gandhiji. Like I said, he took Dayanand's thoughts from Satyarth Prakash, from Maithili Sharan Gupta, all those thoughts going into Gandhiji, Kabir, and Gandhiji's movement. So these are the four most defining foundational things of Chaudhry Sahib. The family he was born in and the circumstances of his self-cultivating peasant family, his education and his absolutely brilliant intellect, and his, even today, Sree, I with my convent education and, ability to communicate, think in English, I can do it in Hindi pretty well, but in English too at the same time. I cannot move a single full stop or a comma in any of his books. And I've read all of them front to back. I cannot move a single comma. So the second thing of his erudition and his ability to communicate in English and in Hindi. Third was Swami Dayanand. And fourth was Gandhiji. Now these are sequential in a way. Now which comes first or second is difficult. What are you born with and what do you learn? Nurture and nature kind of thing. I don't know. But these four are foundational to Charan Singh as we know him.
Wonderful. So at some point in his life, he decided to, he was in Quit India movement like you said. Then he decided to part company with Congress and he started out on his own. What brought about that change in mindset? We're not going to talk about politics. We're just talking about the man, the brilliance of the mind, the clarity of thought. I've had a lot of stories, but today we are going to hear from 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙪 because it's his grandfather and he has got a totally different view. He has done the work. That's what I really appreciate. So tell us what happened at that point of time.
Okay, so actually it's difficult to cut to 1967 because we are talking about the 1930s right now. So if you don't mind, I'll take you through.
No, not at all. Go ahead.
So this is the other one which is very important. So he went to jail 3 times. And you've seen he went to jail during the salt satyagraha in 1930 for 6 months, 1940 during the individual satyagraha, and finally in the Quit India 1942-43. So he became a lawyer, and he was a lawyer in Ghaziabad, which is a town with now a part of the NCR.
Right.
From Ghaziabad he moved to Meerut, and he had a lawyer's brief, but like everything else, Chaudhry Sahib, nothing was easy. He did not take cases of people whom he thought were exploiting others.
I see.
He did not take cases of a landlord against a peasant. So a lot of the cases obviously went out through the window because the ones who had the money to fight the case.
Right.
The cases he took often he did without any cost. Now you see this. He's a lawyer practicing in Ghaziabad, practicing in Meerut. But every few years he's going to jail. So pretty much so there was an instance, the first time when he went to jail, my grandmother who was teaching in Ghaziabad had one gold bangle that was sold to keep the family going.
Wow.
And they moved to the village, which is what they used to do. So every time he went to jail and he was involved in the movements, family would move to the village and eat 𝙒𝙬𝙤𝙪 because that you got in the peasant's house. And then everything used to be disrupted. No education for the kids, no. So I think this is a very important thing, that during this period he was completely immersed in the freedom struggle. Right from 1920, right till 1947. So that was a time which most of us don't realize. Truly, it's a kind of a motherhood statement. But the sacrifices that generation and people like that, tens of thousands like him who gave to get the British out, it's a very moving thought. It's a very moving thought that you can be so selfless. In 1984, speaking on a birth anniversary of Pandit Pant, who was the first premier,
Govind Ballabh
Pant, first premier of then called United Provinces, Chaudhry Sahib asked the question rhetorically in a very contemplative mood to the audience after he had spoken about Chaudhry, whom he respected enormously. He said, why is it that we have pygmies as leaders of men today? He asked the question in a very contemplative mood. He said, the only thing I can think of is perhaps when the British were there, we had this huge mountain to climb. We had this enormous force to fight. So it got out the best in our Indian civilization. So this is from Gandhi to Patel to Tanmohan Malviya to all Nehru to all the names. He said it got all the, it got the best of India. He said, now what's happening? We haven't had a single great leader. I'm talking about Pandit Pant, talking about people like him. Kya hua kya uske baad? So I think this thing of the freedom movement was very definitive in his way of looking at life and Gandhian economics. So during this time he was reading Gandhi. I've got a lot of he read lots of Gandhi. And because he had a good understanding of history, he had a tremendous interest in economics. He really wrote this book called the Gandhian Blueprint, India's Economic Policy, during the Janata Party when he was head of the economic policy. And then even the BJP, as you know, followed something called Gandhian socialism for a brief while under 𝗣𝗽𝗍𝗍𝗔. The 𝗣𝗍𝗍𝗍 was deeply influenced by Chaudhry Sahib at that time. They quickly jettisoned it, but that's okay. So his biggest issue during the freedom movement was how to get the British out. Simultaneously, activities of the Congress, simultaneously activities of looking at caste and I will talk about that. So that was till 47. There were the elections in 1936, the Provincial Assembly.
Right.
He became a member of it, and he was then elected a member from pretty much that same Meerut area till the time he was in politics. Pretty much that remained his area. Moved a little bit, constituencies redrawn. In 36, obviously, he stood as a Congress candidate, defeating something called the 𝗤𝙬𝙗 party candidate, roundly defeated the 𝗤𝙬𝙗 party. And he was in the legislature for a year and a half. I think the legislature was there. Tremendous work on so many things related to peasant bills and laws. So he actually felt that the role of a legislator is to look at creating laws for the good of society. It is not to give freebies, to make roads, to dig wells, or to give people allowances. He says a legislator must legislate. He spent all, and with his legal background, he was not a criminal lawyer, he was a civil lawyer. So that came into use. So just a whole slew of laws. One I will share with you, that there was Chaudhry Chotu Lal, who was the finance minister in Punjab at that time. One of his close associates, an MLA, who was his second in command, he saw a market-produced bill which Chaudhry Sahib had introduced in 1936, United Provinces Assembly. He heard of it, and it was a tremendous bill because he was trying to figure out how to get the mandi. Mandi is more sympathetic to the peasants rather than to the traders, because there's been this tension between the traders and the peasants since ever. So he wanted laws to protect the peasant. That law was liked by Sir Chotu Lal, and he took that law and he based his own law and he passed it while he was in power in Punjab. In UP couldn't do it. So this will give you an idea. Chaudhry Sahib felt that the government in Punjab was much more sympathetic and responsive to the peasant, because those who ran the government were representative of peasants. Now they were also representative of large landlords, both the Muslims and the Hindus, but they were representative of the peasants. Okay, for him in Uttar Pradesh, he was the sole representative of the peasants. The entire leadership was either landlord or it was urban classes and castes. So he couldn't get his way at all. And he's written that in his books often. He says, here was this son of illiterate peasants and a briefless lawyer, as he called himself. He said he has the temerity to challenge us. They did all kind of cases and put fingers at him on his character. So the other thing which comes out is throughout his life, he stood so strongly for his character that all of us parent in his family especially, I talk for myself, we pair into insignificance, into the kind of stuff that he did, defending his character. If you said so much as Charan Singh has lied, he would go to your boss or your whoever and then to the courts and make you apologize, say either prove to me or you apologize. Instances of his character, honesty, uprightness are thousands. Why do people worship him till today? So, I'm sorry, I went off the topic. So the freedom fighter and the legislator. So
right. we touched upon this.
Yeah. So the headline is that he tried to wrest control, which I think he was not successful. But he tried very hard his whole life. He did succeeded some, but not as much as he would have wanted. From landlords, urban interests, and upper castes. Now, must again clarify. He was Arya Samaji, but he did not pull down Hindu religion. He opposed urban interests and he opposed the control of society by upper castes, but he was not against individually upper caste. His best friends, he had 3 best friends, including one 𝗤𝗚𝙪 𝗤𝙪 and 2-3 more. They were either Brahmins or they were Baniyas or they were Kayasts, because at that time they were the people who were running the country.
Right.
So but he was able to talk to a Brahmin and he was able to make him see that the caste system is inequitous. He was able to talk to a Kayast and he was able to win them over by his logic and and that was also some people believed in.
Correct.
So there was no individual rancor. It was at a societal level. So he'd be sitting in a press conference with those people from those castes and saying that it's wrong. So fundamentally trying to do that. Now let me see if we can get away from that. Okay. This is the big one. Why Charan Singh is loved, admired, worshipped by farmers in Uttar Pradesh especially. Because that was the place where he was a minister from 1946 till 1971 and then all of it. But he had great knowledge of UP and this is his Karam Bhumi. The Congress had a plan for abolishing zamindari across the nation. In UP, Pandit Pant had set up something called the Zamindari Abolition Committee. He was a member because he was parliamentary secretary to Pandit Pant in 1946. He then pretty much took over the whole committee, but the report was made as a consensus report. He didn't like many elements of the report. He wrote a well-considered 18-page note to Pandit Pant saying, "Oh, has been done. The revenue minister didn't attend the meetings. The agriculture minister wasn't really interested. The landlord interest didn't want this to go through." So they had got all kind of escape routes in the whole committee. It is a big, thick report. There are only 2 volumes existing. One at the UP Legislative Assembly, second I had.
I see.
Which is now the family and me and the family have given it to the Prime Minister's Museum. It's a historical document. Zamindari was abolished on 72 million acres of land. Just think about it.
Wow.
At one fell swoop. He said that. He said, Zamindari has played its role. It must be destroyed completely. And that's what he did. This act, day and night. Instances which he has quoted, he says, Pandit Pant दरवाजे पे खड़े हैं, कह रहे हैं चरण सिंह घर जाओ, 9 बज गए हैं, सुबह हम लोग 8 बजे से आए थे, हमको भी घर जाने दो. So the Pandit Pant was very hardworking, and Chaudhary Sahab obviously followed in that footsteps, but he was himself workaholic. Now you can't do something like this by working 8-hour days.
Correct.
So he was not only doing this, he was also going out meeting people. He was also going out creating his constituency and doing his politics. But here was a man who had by now, because of his erudition, intelligence, education, background, Dayanand, Gandhi, all of that came together in Zamindari abolition. He took it as, this has got to be done. He implemented the law. Long story. It is just a huge, huge task that he did. But Sunil Khilani says, he says both about Zamindari abolition and about the intellectual capability of Chaudhary Sahab. He says Soviet Russia had a couple of dozen rural intellectuals. China had a few. But Charan Singh was independent India's one and only rural intellectual. I'm not saying it, Sunil Khilani is. Obviously I agree with him. But that's what Sunil Khilani says. So all of these came together. He had a fantastic knowledge of the revenue system. Completely fantastic. He knew exactly how the law, this law, unlike many others, was never challenged in a court of law because it had been drafted so carefully. He obviously said that bureaucrats, my Secretary of Revenue, Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Land Reform, they were all fantastic men. And this was all ICS and original. He said, they helped me do it, but waterproof. Not one part of it was ever challenged. So Zamindari abolition was one of the reasons. Now the second law in 1953, so this is 1951.
Right.
I'll take you to this one. 1953, there is something called Chakbandi. Chak means small piece, Bandi means putting it together. So how did he it's called Land Consolidation Act in 1953, which he passed. The law was passed by him against great opposition. Again, all kind of health issues, heart issues, because we were fighting those kind of. By the way, you know that all the people who supported the creation of Pakistan, is my understanding, I might be wrong, you could correct me. All the Muslims who helped support the Muslim League in Jinnah and the creation of Pakistan, many of them were large landlords from Uttar Pradesh who were worried about losing their privilege from land. So there was that tension also, that amidst the class warfare, he destroyed an entire class without violence.
Right.
He told me that once. I heard that a man had a very high opinion of himself, Chaudhry Sahib. He said only two people, son, have ever understood the peasant. One was Mao Zedong and other is me. He actually believed that he understood the peasant of India. And he understood it intellectually, he understood him experientially. So in 1953, he passed this law called Chakbandi, which till today continues. Revolutionary. Land holdings are fragmented across the village, outside.
Right.
I had one piece here, one piece there, one piece there, one piece there. He brought it together. And he got a whole system together to do it. It's a very corrupt system, in India.
True.
And there are land conflicts in every part of India, whether it's south or north or wherever.
Right.
Neighbor with neighbor. He got this done. It was a fantastic thing, but the farmers loved this. The second thing. And obviously the land ceiling. Controversial, he felt, because you see what happened is, in the mid-1950s, Pandit Pant was called to Delhi. You doing okay?
We want to wrap up in about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So Pandit Pant was called to Delhi to be the Home Minister because Sardar Patel had passed away. So he lost his mentor and his cover. So all the Chief Minister after him, after Pant, was Sampoornanand, who Chaudhry Sahib felt was not good enough. He felt he should have been Chief Minister. After Sampoornanand came C.B. Gupta, who definitely Chaudhry Sahib felt that he is corrupt, he is representative of urban interests, he doesn't care about the masses, so I'm better than him. Then came Sucheta Kriplani, who was imposed from outside by the Congress, who was not even active.
So Nehru was already trying to impede Charan Singh from...
1959, so if you got 5 minutes, let me see where I can finish. In 1959, there was the Nagpur convention of the All India Congress Committee, where Nehruji, in his and being enamored of the communist world, very confused socialist communism. What is socialism? What is communism? How can you take one part and yet be democratic? So either you're democratic or you're communist. How can you be? Correct. I want to be both from socialist kind of thing. Chaudhry Sahib didn't like that. He felt that both capitalism and socialism, whether of the state or the individual, are not okay for India. You can learn from them, you can study them, but you cannot impose it on India. Nehruji wanted to impose the entire collective farming, as he saw in Russia, very successful. He sent parliamentary delegations, went to China, went to Russia. They came back with reports which Chaudhry Sahib read and said, see, I told you. And everyone else said, see, we should do it when Nehruji is saying it. 1959, Nagpur, he spoke for 1 hour with Nehruji on the stage, And there is a quotation from 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙀𝘀, which says that we heard Chaudhry Sahib, 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙀, President of India, who was a congressman and a delegate
And
from
farmer
Punjab
himself also.
farmers. We heard him in rapt attention. We thought the tide had turned. But the personality of Nehruji was such, we had no choice to follow what Nehruji had said. So you go and see the 1959 resolution as we want to move towards collective farming. Chaudhry Sahib said, nonsense. We have implemented zamindari abolition so as to give individual farmers the right to farm their land and individual initiative.
Right.
So some called it individual capitalism. And here, this man is going to take this land and give it to some kind of a community.
Right.
How will they farm? How will they earn? He said it won't work in India. And his view today, you will see, is right.
Right.
And all of the alternative views are wrong because there is no collective farming anywhere in the world,
Right.
except in some communes
Right.
who say, okay, let's live,
Right.
without them.
True.
So that is one thing. Now I don't know how we want to stop because there is a lot which is about once we finish this as to why was he dissatisfied with the Congress, how did he move out in 1967, then he formed the government, he was chief minister twice.
That was Rashtriya Lok Dal or
no,
Lok Dal? It was just Lok
there
Dal.
was the Bharatiya Kranti Dal.
Bharatiya Kranti Dal.
Was a political party formed by all ex-congressmen who had left the Congress in 1967. It was formed in 68. Leading congressmen from Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, and him from UP, ex-chief ministers. Party was formed. Chaudhry Sahib in 1967, when he left the Congress, he was very much one of the founding members, but he kept away from the leadership. Then he, during the elections, which happened in the next year, he became the president of it. There's a wonderful thing, the whole political manifesto, whereas there's not one giveaway, but it's all policies as to what will we do when we come to power. He didn't promise I'll give you this and give you that, nothing. He never gave anything. There's a lot of stuff yet, and then in 71 it became, 67 it was the ragtag coalition called the 𝗤cie 𝗱𝗰𝘀𝘀. Then in 71 a support of the Indira Congress. So there's a lot of stuff in there that he allied with people who he thought he could come to power with. But as Paul Bras said, that there are few people in my country and in India who have come to politics with the objective of serving the nation.
Yes.
And not to promote their family or to make money for themselves. He says Charan Singh was one of them.
This is not going to be done in one session. So what I'm going to do is we're going to temporarily pause here and we're going to continue as part 2 because this is just 67. He has become chief minister. He's into real politics now and we can talk from there. So what I would love to do, 𝗤𝗪𝗔, is I'm doing it on the fly without asking your permission, but I'm hoping that you will say yes. Is we'll do a part 2 of this in the next few days.
Of course. Yeah.
That time we'll do it online. And then it'll be live also.
Okay.
That way the part 2, after part 2, people can have questions on
Okay.
both part 1 and part 2.
All right.
And then after that, I want to do the same thing in Hindi.
Okay.
But with a different, we'll have other things to share. In
Well,
Hindi
one of
also.
the things there's a lovely book of his which he wrote he says, young parents. He was in jail in Bareilly jail. Book called Shishtachar. Sanskrit Shishtachar, translated to English, means good manners.
Yes.
But like all Indian words, which are translated to doesn't do it justice.
Untranslatable, right.
Because
right.
it's got culture,
Right.
it's got civilizational ethics in it. So Shishtachar means how does a good person live in society?
Yes.
How does he behave with others? And behavior is always based on ethics and morality.
Yes.
So he wrote this book. I have it, I was taking it to somebody else.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Shishtachar, here you go.
So
Wonderful.
this is a book which is completely away from politics. Quotations from every possible, from the Vedas, from the Upanishads,
Wow.
from Kabir, and parts of it you read, you think Charan Singh is talking about himself. Very, very Indian civilized and Indic civilization is what we call it.
Right.
So he gave this book, which I think is very valuable to understanding
Yes.
that all politics must be based on morality and ethics.
Yes, yes. So viewers, what we're going to do is I'll put all the links. These are available in
Yes, sir.
Sainsbury's,
This
right?
is all. This is there, and now Sage is now stopped publishing everything. The Charan Singh Archives publishes these online.
Okay.
Amazon India.
Amazon India. So we'll get the links from you.
Yeah.
We'll put those things out. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notification. 𝗤𝗧𝗍, this was one of the best conversations I've had by far. I mean, this is something else. Viewers, you owe it to all these great people because history does not do justice to what they did. And this is why I wanted to have this conversation in person with you, 𝗤𝗧𝗍. At least the first part has been done in person. The second, third, and the following things we are going to be doing, we'll be doing it online. But thanks so much for devoting time. What we are going to do was a 10-minute talk. Now it's taken an hour and a few minutes. So thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir.
Love you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, this
ये
is-
आपको I'll do one thing. मैं कोयम्बतूर में रहने वाला हूँ.
Okay.
And I'll be here there for another 4 weeks. So
Okay.
ये कर देंगे सब. We'll do all these things during the next few days.
Yeah, we'll do.
We'll stay in touch.
I'd be happy to.
And we will finish this.
Well, it's
off.
come at a good time because right now I'm in the process of making this as a formal presentation.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Because
Wonderful.
it's just for me, to be quite honest, the politics of this Bharat Ratna,
Right.
everything is politics.
Of course.
What is not
wanted to bring it.